Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals.
Thank you for joining us today on another session of the DNA Talks. And today is really special. Today is a success story. So if any of you have had chronic issues, if you've done everything right, if you are a perfectionist that says, why can't I get it right? I think today will give you hope. My name is Dr. Stephanie Nielsen. I am a clinical pharmacist. I am a board-certified clinical nutritionist and a functional genomic practitioner. I work with the DNA company to help that little extra bit of the population who says, I've done everything right and I can't find out. And today we're here to highlight one of our amazing functional genomic practitioners, Lynn. And Lynn is from South Africa, so you guys are going to love her accent. It's so much fun to listen to. But besides her accent, her innate brilliance is just fabulous. She is someone who specializes in a lot of heavy metal detox and getting to root causes. And then we have our wonderful client, Linda Craft. Linda is a very successful, accomplished woman. She's beautiful inside and out. But, you know, like a lot of people who are very high achieving, she struggled with not being able to reach the pinnacles she wants. So ladies, welcome today. We're going to talk a little bit about, Linda, your journey. Linda, will you introduce yourself for our audience and tell us a little bit about your background and how you found the DNA company?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me again. I'm Linda Craft, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina in the United States. And Sunday, I'm going to celebrate my 70th birthday. But I was born into a family back. I know. Thank you. I was born into a family that didn't know better. You know, like most families. I mean, my mom worked. She came home every night. She made a meal. She always baked sweets in the house. And I literally grew up on white sugar and white flour and bacon grease. She fried in bacon grease that sat on the stove. And I thought that was normal. I was athletic and I was thin, and, you know, most people were thin back in the 50s, but I had a terrible diet, no fiber, just terrible, and didn't know any better. And when I got pregnant with my daughter, I went to see my dad and I said, oh my gosh, I'm such a tomboy. I am scared to death about having a baby. I don't know anything about babies. And he said, well, the more you know about something, the less you fear it. So go to the library, check out books, and learn everything about childbirth. And what I learned is about health. And I was shocked that my mom had been trying to kill us for years with her cooking. And I changed everything.
Without even knowing it.
I changed everything. I breastfed. I made my own baby food. After my daughter was 4, I opened a health food store. I just continued to study and learn. I exercised, had a great diet. And then I rolled into, and obviously I had a lot of stress. I opened my own company. I went through divorces, blah, blah, blah. But I also had a mouthful of amalgam because I had eaten so much sugar and junk growing up. And about the mid 80s, I had started my own business. So it was way too much cortisol and stress. And I had started getting some dental work done, and I started replacing my bad teeth with crowns, but they just put crowns on top of the amalgam.
So let me just recap for a second. So you had read all about this health. You then had dental issues, and you added dental crowns to hopefully take care of those issues.
Yes, but they covered up the amalgam because, again, we didn't know any better.
So for people who don't know what amalgam is, this is a mercury-based composite that goes in the mouth and stays in the mouth permanently. Oh, look, we've just had another wonderful woman join us. Hey, Tracy Wood just jumped on. Tracy Wood is our CEO. She lives in that wonderful LA area with lots of traffic.
More than you could possibly imagine. Good
morning,
ladies.
Good morning. Well, we were just starting to talk about Lynn and Linda's journey, and Linda was telling us how she had grown up in a family where she thinks she was being poisoned all the time with her white flour and white sugar and all the dental work she had that she didn't know was going to start a journey toward degrading her health.
Wow. Well, and Linda, it's wonderful to meet you. I know we've talked a bunch on email, but it's honestly a thrill to meet you. I've watched kind of what's happened with you and Lynn, and I get to see some of those recordings, and just fantastic. What amazing effort on both of your part to get you to where you want to be. That's just awesome.
Yes, 100% agree. The reason I made reference to the 80s and starting to have some dental work, and I had changed my diet and I was taking supplements and exercising and doing everything right, but I started having problems. First, here I am teaching aerobics and I have high blood pressure. And then I started having thyroid issues. And then I
So, how
started
did you find out you had high blood pressure?
Well, I was on vacation with my mother shopping, doing one of our favorite things together. And there was somebody taking the blood pressure test. And I was like, I'm on vacation and I'm in the 150s. So we're like 90 something.
Oh,
And I'm like, and my dad had died of a heart attack at 56. And I thought, how can I have high blood pressure? And my whole life, I had trouble GI problems going to the bathroom because we didn't eat fiber. We didn't even know what that was with white sugar and white flour. And although I was changing some of that, wasn't correcting all the problems. So then I started on blood pressure medicine, which is just horrible. And and then I started having problems with my thyroid. My hair was falling out. Then I started having hormone issues, and I used to get leg cramps all the time when I was sleeping. And I was at a business meeting speaking to this woman who is a functional medicine doctor and an MD. And I was sharing with her that I take supplements, but I have a lot of leg cramps. And she said, "You need minerals." And I'm like, "I take minerals." And she said, "Your body's telling you you need more." And so I was so intrigued by her. I set up an appointment. This was about 12 years ago. And because of my health food background and just my love for learning, she literally let me run every test. We did heavy metals, we did essential elements. I've got obviously a blood panel with about 15 tubes of blood to check everything in the world. We had a GI map test. I mean, we tested everything. And I had been going to her for a long time. And some of my problems got a little bit better, at least when I got on hormones that helped a lot, and thyroid. But I still had headaches all the time. I was still tired. I still felt like nothing was really working in my system well. I didn't sleep well. And so I was listening to a podcast and I heard Kasha talking about the DNA company and that it is great to take supplements, but you need to take the ones that are right for your body. And I was taking about 175 pills.
mm.
So I had my DNA tested, and holy cow, I am so grateful that I got the information back from the DNA company because there were so many things that I was doing that was actually hurting my body. And because my functional
I'm
medicine
going to
doctor,
interrupt you just for a second. So, what were you taking for your headaches?
oh, I'm embarrassed to tell you. Thank you for asking that question because your audience needs to know. Tylenol sinus, Excedrin, ibuprofen. I mean, I tried everything, which of course messed my gut up even more for
So, for
years.
those people who don't know, outside of the US, it's called paracetamol. In the US, it's Tylenol or acetaminophen. And those have to be detoxified. For those of us who are old enough, we remember the Tylenol scares and we had the contaminated Tylenol. But Tylenol chews on the liver. The liver is a major organ of detoxification. So if you're not, in your optimal health, or if your organs can't detoxify, you're just making them more toxic. So you were taking Tylenol, some Tylenol, also with aspirin, which is a salicylic acid, Excedrin. Anything beyond that? Did they put you on any tricyclic antidepressants like amitriptyline, which they do for headaches a lot? None of those. Okay.
No,
So
no,
more just over the counter things.
and a
Okay.
lot of them. I would
A
wake
lot.
up every morning with a headache. Did that for years. And my functional medicine doctor, she knew I had high mercury and she was trying to treat me. She had me on glutathione, ALA. She increased my B12. Um, when I changed my diet, and I was eating a lot of broccoli and cauliflower and things to feed my gut. And but after I had my DNA done, and it's wonderful, just to do the simple package where you get the information about who you are, and lots of great resources. But I went ahead and signed up for, um, I don't know what you
For
call
some
it, but
coaching.
a
Yeah.
professional to help me.
Yeah.
And I was able to send to,
I'm gonna stop you right there, and I'm gonna bring Lynn in since she was the lead on your team. So, Lynn, as someone who's got a history in health, let's talk a little bit about who you are, how you came in to genomics, and then let's talk specifically about Linda and what you saw in her DNA.
Right. So, yes, so I am also a functional medicine therapist for probably around 11, 12 years, and with a DNA company for the last 2 years, effectively. I have my own personal story with Mercury. I went from being very health conscious my entire life. My previous life, I was a professional chef. I taught cookery classes. I taught people how to, prepare your food so that it remains healthy. Did all of the right things. And when I got to the age of 51-ish, started feeling very, very tired. But like Linda, also had a lifelong history of headaches. But I used to get migraines that would knock me flat for 3 days. And again, one would take handfuls of tablets to deal with the symptom, because that's all we knew at that time is, something hurts you, you want to take that away. So give me something to take the pain away. And nobody could ever, my diet was all avoid this. Those people who get headaches will know this, or migraines. The doctors will say to you, avoid red wine, avoid blue cheese, avoid chocolate, all of those things that are supposed to be the triggers. But with functional genomics, we know that we have to look at the body's foundation report. Basically, if being a chef, I'm going to say that's your recipe. And a recipe always has ingredients, and it has a method of what you do with it. And so basically, the ingredients would be, what does your body need? And then how does it deal with it? What is the instruction part of it? So if I had done a DNA test when they first came out, like 30 odd years ago, but it was a conventional test, which of course now I know the difference, that with conventional DNA, we're looking at just the SNPs, a whole lot of data, not a lot of information to help you to prevent
So
something.
again, for people who aren't DNA savvy, a SNP is a single nucleotide peptide, which says, okay, here's a break, and here's how it's going to show up. There's phenotypic and genotypic. What does a gene say? How does it show up? So a lot of places look at SNPs, and they look at things that are maybe fun to know. For example, my favorite example is, can you do this with your tongue? I can curl mine. Not everybody can. That's a SNP, There, Lynn can. Can you, Linda? Okay, she can't. So we've got some different ones. But does that make a difference in my life? No, not in my headache, it doesn't. No, not in how I process food, it doesn't. So some things are fun to have. The thing that's powerful about the DNA company is we have 73 different genes that we look at where there's an actual function. Start at point A, go to point B, and we can shift that. So Lynn, what did you find in your journey and then in Linda's journey with her DNA?
So I think Linda started her health journey when she fell pregnant and she knew she was responsible for another little human being. And mine started at age 50 when I've been doing everything right, and yet I was starting to feel awful. It quickly progressed down to me not being able to get out of bed in the morning. I'd sleep 14 hours, wake up exhausted. Then I started having memory problems, couldn't remember what I was reading, couldn't remember words. It was like finding a word through jelly. So I knew something was very, very wrong. And not too much about my story. Suffice to say that Mercury was the root cause. So I realized that I didn't take glutathione like Linda did, but I did take ALA. I did take chlorella, all the things that people say take for Mercury because it'll bind with it. But that's where your functional genomics comes in as well. You need to know what happens. How does your body use glutathione? So in Linda's case, having that 0 copy on the GSTM for the gut meant that when she took that IV or just the glutathione tablet, she was flooding her entire system, so causing a problem just in that.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there for a second. So for those people who are, again, new to genomics, we've got GSTT, we have GSTM, we have GSTP. Think of gut, okay? So these are our clearance pathways. They clear xenobiotics, they clear antibiotics, they clear natural substances. These are our detox, get in, clean up scrubbers, and you can either have 2 copies, you can have no copies, you can have 1 copy. So, Linda, do we have your permission to go a little bit deeper into what your profile actually was and why it made a difference? Because I love what Lynn did. She had, as an expert that she is, she was able to pick apart each one of those genes. So, Lynn, tell us specifically what you saw in Linda's and how it impacted how you helped her.
So Linda's, those genes, the GST for the liver, she has only 1 copy, which is a moderate version of how it gets rid of things, but not all of it. And then on the gut level, she had 0. So that was a major problem there. So even with all the supplements she was taking, she was putting it into a system that had no way of handling it or dealing with it. So sometimes that in itself can cause a problem. And then on the lung level, I always say to my clients, it's like 3 soldiers that stand guard at your lung level. So things that you inhale, at your gut level, things that you consume. And then the liver is the last one that has to filter things out and get rid of the bad things. So in Linda's case, she also has the worst, or basically her soldier at her lung level is fast asleep on the job.
We can clear, I call them the Asian nation. There's respiration, perspiration, defecation, urination. Okay, so her lung, her respiration, she's not clearing. Her gut, her defecation, she's not clearing. The liver, we can do a little bit. So we're going to worry a little bit about the Tylenol and stuff she's putting in the liver. But if that's not getting converted properly, she's not getting it out anywhere else, which causes, it's like bringing too much furniture into your house and all of a sudden you have this cluttered, hoarded house that you may be good stuff, but it's not, it's just accumulating. So you saw a lot of massive accumulation. And Linda, you felt that massive accumulation because a headache is a symptom. It's the body giving you the clue that says, this ain't working for me, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is I didn't sweat. I worked out all the time and I didn't sweat and I didn't sleep well. And so when I started working with Lynn, we worked on everything.
Mhm.
I mean, the first thing she says, stop taking ALA, stop taking glutathione, stop eating foods that have high theos in it. Just try it for 2 weeks and see how you feel.
So what's a
Before
thiol? For those people who don't know, what's a thiol?
It's in a lot of foods and it was in everything I ate every day. I was shocked when I saw the list.
Okay, so
And
Lynn, your turn. Tell us what a thiol is and what it means and why we avoid it, or
It's a
certain people need to avoid it.
it's a sulfur group in the food, and mercury as a heavy metal has a special affinity for that sulfur. So basically the thiol would connect with the mercury and basically deprive the body of the use of that sulfur, of what it needs to do. And because the mercury is holding onto it and your body doesn't know how to get rid of the mercury, the combination of both is what's causing the bigger problem for people when it comes to food. So about 80% of people who suffer from heavy metal, particularly mercury toxicity, can literally just Google a list for high thiol foods, exclude it for 10 days, and see just how much better you feel. And then for one day, you start putting high thiols back, and immediately all those old symptoms will come back. And that's exactly what Linda experienced. I mean, Linda, I think I
it was a
remember
miracle. It
what
was a miracle. I literally thought I was growing old and dying because I had no energy and I felt so bad every day and my brain wasn't working as I was trying to detox with the traditional method. And and when Lynn changed my diet for just 2 weeks, and of course I'm still on it, and but it was a transformation. So then she said, "We can't detox until you get the amalgam out from underneath those crowns because you're just pulling it from your teeth back into your system." So I literally had 8 crowns and a bridge removed, taken out. I have beautiful teeth now, all new crowns, all the amalgam's gone. And then we started our detox protocol. Of course, she sent me lots of literature to read and learn about what I was doing, and she's coached me through it. But the missing piece was everybody, the test showed I had high mercury, but no one knew how to get it out except Lynn.
Okay, so Lynn, you saw the mercury, you saw the field diet, and you went, okay, so let's run a little test run. And the feedback you got from her was very positive. You have a background as a chef and a functional genomic practitioner and functional medicine, and nutritional health.
Yes.
What did you know or what did you believe her journey was going to look like versus what you saw in practice?
Well, I think the first thing is, the big question is, why is the body heals all the time? That's why we sleep, because it detoxes, it repairs while we sleep, and particularly in deep sleep. So my question with all my clients is always, what is preventing your body from doing its job? And then we need to get rid of that. And with somebody who does all the right things, as she did, yet feeling terrible, I always look at heavy metals first, because she had a test done already. She says, I know I've got mercury. But she was taking things like alpha lipoic acid, which is a fantastic antioxidant, except if you're mercury toxic, because it will bind with the mercury and it holds onto it only for about 3 hours and then it drops it. So ALA is the only one that can cross your blood-brain barrier, because that's where your body will store the mercury. It's so toxic, it doesn't know how to get rid of it. Even if you have a perfect set of detoxification genetic pathways, it still doesn't know how to get rid of mercury. And it will store it in your fatty tissues, and your brain is one big fatty tissue, adipose tissue. So for most of us, the mercury goes into the brain, where it can sit for many, many years. People who are mercury toxic, unless you've had a acute exposure, you don't get sick the very next day. It takes years, but years of constantly knowing something isn't right, and going to doctors and having blood tests, and it comes back and it says everything's fine. And, you continue with your life because no one is able to tell you what's wrong.
So wait a minute. So with mercury toxicity, how are you testing for mercury toxicity? Do you test for that with the DNA or something else?
I think it's a combination. So the DNA tells me, how does this body handle getting rid of toxins, and how do we need to support this body? Because we also know that mercury will derange your essential elements. So that's something that mercury does as a heavy metal that no other metal does. So you can have lead poisoning or arsenic poisoning as well. It won't derange your essential elements. These are things that your body needs. It's an essential element. So I use a hair test called the hair elements test. It will test for all the heavy metals that you have, but it does a section of where it looks for your essential elements. And then we look.
So I do hair tissue mineral analysis, HTMA. Is that what you're talking about?
It is, except the one that I use is the one from Doctor's Data, because the protocol that I use to detox people, and the one that gave me my life back, was by Dr. Andy Cutler. And he wrote a whole book on how to interpret the results because of the way mercury deranges your essential elements. Mm-hmm. That is where it's the key, because some people can have a head test result. It says the mercury bar is very low. And the doctor will say, well, you don't have mercury. Look, it's very low. But if you look at the essential elements part and you see that it's all over the show, some are high and some are low, it's nothing balanced about it, that's the sign that mercury is at play and your body cannot get rid of it. It's holding on to it and not even excreting it out through the hair. So those are the clues that I look for. And then obviously using the DNA report to see where do we support the body.
So I want to bring Tracy back in for a minute. Tracy, I know you hear this all the time. And I know that people come with these mystery symptoms, and yet so many of them come back to dental health. And I think you yourself have had a lot of dental work and had some things. Share a little bit about kind of what you see as the CEO of the DNA company.
So I do, doctor. I get a lot of calls. I get a lot of emails. And in fact, that's how I got Linda, was through an email that she had sent about Lynn and how fantastic their entire journey was. But I get a lot of emails that are not that positive. I get I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And one of the things that, I'm not a doctor. I just play one on television. One of the things that I make sure we're very mindful. Right? One of the things I make sure we're really mindful of is we have to have the right practitioner in that right frame for that patient, right? So it's important for me to go to, I have a great bench with all of you, right? Each of you have different areas of specialty. So I can take that information from that person, and then I can say, Lynn is your best fit. Let's start here, and then work your program so that you come to the other side of it feeling well again, feeling like you get your life back. I mean, look at Linda. She looks amazing. And she did not feel, right? She did not feel as amazing as she does right now when this all started for her. So I get a lot of feedback from people before and then after, which really does make my job a great job to have. But, people don't know what they don't know, Doc, right? They don't know what they don't know. If they don't have a test that will tell them functionally, here's what your problem is, or here could be a good chunk of your problem, or let's start here and then build from. There's no perfects. We call it practicing medicine because we haven't gotten it down right? But if in that practice you take like what Lynn does and take a very high testing level approach, she makes sure that she gets that testing in that even goes beyond what we do. And then she takes all of that information and compiles a plan. And it's like she mentioned, she said to Linda, do this for 10 days. And during that 10 days, Lynn knew she was on the right track. But rather than having the patient immediately go balls to the wall, changing their whole life, buying, thousands of dollars worth of supplements, rather than doing that, Lynn took, right, baby steps, met Linda where she was, and walked through that with her. And at the end of that 10 days, she was able to say, okay, we really are onto something. This is in part and parcel what's going on. And then they built from there. So I see that a lot. This is a great success story.
I think a lot of people think we may only have just the DNA test, but part of what you've done, yeah, look at those both of them. No, a lot of what you've done since you've come on as CEO, Kashif Khan, who was one of our founders, was brilliant at interpreting the data and took his own personal journey. But as things happen, a lot of times people, they take that niche and then they need someone to do all the back end. When Kashif brought you in as the COO to really run the business aspect, the thing that I appreciate about you, having known you for 20 plus years, is you said, what does our customer want? And one of the things our customers want is, this DNA test is awesome, but could I get this? And will you go through maybe some of the tests that you've brought in that expand what the DNA company is doing for patients like Linda?
Absolutely. So we did expand to 5 tests, right? We created a PGX test, a pharmacogenomics test that had the foundation of our functional genomics test underneath it. And that was really important because so many of us, the average American's on 3.5 medications. And so many of us don't know if that efficacy is there. Right? I would imagine, Linda, you took a lot of stuff and you had no idea if your body could use it, if it couldn't use it, if using it was damaging you, or if using it was really a waste of time and an impact to the liver that you didn't need. So pharmacogenomics gave us that ability. It also gives us the ability to tell you if a drug could be potentially fatal. Every single day in America, there is one medication mistake made for every patient in every emergency room in the country every day. People don't know that. 1.3 million people have what they call avoidable injury in medication in America every single year. It costs us $170 billion in mistakes and treatment. But separate from that, 7,000 people die every single year in the United States alone from medical mistakes. So it was important that we built pharmacogenomics. And from that, it just made sense to go to the Gut 360, where we could test for people in that gut deficiency, in that biome, and figure out how that impacted their treatment as they went along. And then the other 2 big ones, right? Liquid biopsy. There's 70% of cancers in America are not tested for until after you get them. That's a problem. So there's many tests, and we have adopted a a bundle, if you will, of tests for liquid biopsy. One of them is the Grail test from Gallery. And then, of course, we have a CA 125 for women or a PSA for men. And then the last test that we have that's actually very new in America is a teardrop test for breast cancer. You know, in America and Canada, they have raised the age at which mammograms are being done. Yet we have more women being diagnosed with cancer and breast cancer in their 20s and 30s than we ever have in the history of this country. So why are we doing that? It all comes down to money. So it was important to me as I did expand the company in the United States to get the best testing we could. And another thing we did was we went to Rupa Labs, we went to DHA, we went to Direct Labs, and we said, listen, we have these like the metal toxicity test, the Dutch test. We have patients that need these things and they can't afford them through LabCorp and through Quest, where they're paying 3 times what Medicare approves. They can't afford it. So we went and negotiated with these people and said, listen, we want provider pricing for our people. And we got it. And so while the majority of the testing that we do is one of the 5 that we offer, we will go outside based on the patient need, and based on how the patient presents, because we have a larger responsibility, in my opinion, to the community that we serve. It's not just to the pocketbooks or the shareholders of the people that are here. So that's what we did.
And so to our patient, Linda, you did your 10-day anti-feel or removing the feel. And tell us what happened then, and tell us when you did your reintroduction challenge.
So I immediately felt better just after 10 days. I also went through all the supplements I was taking and I started taking out all the ALA and everything else that Lynn said she took. I was taking it too, just everything to detox. And then we really started working on my sleep and opening up my other pathways to detox. So for instance, I didn't sweat. So I started doing infrared sauna. And I sweat in that sauna, and now I've started sweating when I work out. So I know that pathway is open. My sleep was terrible. I got an Oura Ring. Kasha recommended organic mattress. I got a Sentia mattress, all organic sheets, darkened my room, completely blacked out, covered up all my little blinky things from the smoke detector to whatever that was in my bedroom. And I got it really dark. And I'm proud to say every day, it seems like my deep sleep gets more and more and more. I'm doing infrared sauna. I'm doing red light therapy. Yes, sleeping better, sweating, and so now that a few of those pathways are starting to open, and I've had all of my crowns replaced with all that horrible mercury out of my body, we started a new protocol, which is helping me to detox, where I'm 3 days on DMSA and ALA in really small doses, 3 days on around the clock because it has a half-life, and then 4 days to recover, and then I repeat that. So
before we go further, you had all of your dental crowns out, all your amalgam stuff out, but you can just use anybody for that, right?
Oh, no. Lynn had me research and find a specialty doctor. They were in spacesuits. I was completely covered up. I had oxygen in my nose, and it was amazing.
Now,
So
why do you have to go to that extent to find a biological dentist or somebody who understands the real toxicity?
It really wasn't that expensive to do it right, because whenever they drill out that mercury, the vapors, you can breathe them in, and it's so much more toxic.
So that would actually reabsorb into your body if it's not removed properly.
Yeah. And I think it would be good to talk a little bit about where do these heavy metals come from?
Sure.
Because I stopped having my nails polished. I changed all my cosmetics. I know that my toxic levels of metal started with vaccines as a child, followed by amalgam in my teeth and eating seafood and chemicals that I use in my household. In the United States, sadly, we put a lot of junk into things that we use. And so most people do have heavy metal toxicity. They're just not testing for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're providing testing that don't give the full picture, like what Lynn alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true because I had some blood work done once and it said my mercury level was fine. And I'm like, oh no, it's not. I've had hair, blood, urine. I mean, you name it. I've had every type of test for heavy metals and I'm off the chart with mercury.
So, Lynn, you had her do her test. She immediately saw results. You, as her practitioner leading her, what was the next step there?
I just want to take one step back, if I may, and just to say that people are mercury toxic even if they've never had an amalgam, because if their mum had amalgam or had a dental treatment with amalgam during the pregnancy, the body is so smart, it will use the fetus as a sponge to lower the mother's mercury burden because it knows it's so toxic. So you can come into the world already mercury toxic. And then we have, unfortunately, the childhood vaccinations where they use mercury as a preservative. So it's not put in there to hurt people. It's a fantastic preservative because it kills everything and it can sit on the shelf for 12 years as a result. So,
Including us.
including us. So that happens. And then it's very much used in coal burning power stations, which I know you have a lot of in the States. This is the biggest way we have electricity in South Africa. Mining, gold mining uses it. Thermometers, who as a child did not play with a little bit of mercury. So funny enough, that is not going to harm you so much when it runs around on your skin, but it's the vapor. It's what you don't see, you don't smell it, and you don't taste it. That is the one that it's so toxic because then it just goes in. And if you have like Linda had the suboptimal GSTP version where the lungs were not able to recognize it as a toxin, then it just almost goes straight into a safe place that the body is going to store it. So when you have every time you chew, grind your teeth and sleep, brush your teeth, go to the dentist for work, you're releasing the vapor. And that's really what's causing the problem. And when I start with my
Warm drinks will do it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to be another person because usually when people get to us, they've seen so many doctors and therapists before that I want to put the power back into their hands. I want to give them the agency over their own body. So I will always have them do a few tests, like excluding the sulfur groups out of your food, like doing a little adrenal cocktail test, so that when you do that little test yourself and you feel the difference, you start making the connection saying, you know what, I can change this. I can control this. I can feel better if I know what I need to do, instead of somebody telling you, stop doing this. You might stop for a while and then you go back to old habits. And basically it's a repeat cycle. So a big thing for me is to
The low thiol diet is
yes.
one thing, 10 days off, then trial. What's the adrenal cocktail?
The adrenal cocktail is literally mercury will damage the adrenals as well. So if you take some orange juice, some fresh orange juice, and about a quarter teaspoon of cream of tartar, which is basically potassium, and sodium. So a little bit of sea salt, not table salt. That's just a chemical. And so it's the juice of one fresh orange. And you stir that up until it dissolves and you drink that. If it tastes delicious, your adrenals need support. If it tastes absolutely vile, because it'll be like salty orange juice, how terrible is that? We know your adrenals are actually okay. So it's just little things like that when people do that, because I'll say, give it to your husband, give it to your friend, let somebody else do the test at the same time, and you'll see they'll have a different response. So
You also had me do an HCl test and a zinc test with liquid zinc to see if I was deficient.
So when a client has zero copy of the GSDM in the gut, I always get them to try things in a liquid form. So we have absorption happening here and not expected to go to the gut where we know it's not going to be absorbed. So you're wasting money. So the zinc is such an important support, mineral support. And when you have a liquid zinc, when you drink it and it'll either taste like water, like nothing, or it'll taste terrible. So we know if it tastes like water, you don't taste anything, you're actually in need of some zinc. So it's a good measure for a client to be, again, having agency over, do I have enough? Because the body's never in a static state. Everything changes every single day. It adjusts all the time. But that puts you in charge of, I can back down a little bit on my zinc, or I still need to keep going with the zinc.
Well, and it also edifies you because we know that I can convince anyone of anything that they already have proven to themselves. So Linda's like, okay, so here's this expert, and she had me try this, and she was right. Oh my gosh, that goes. Lynn's credibility went up. Linda had me try this, or Lynn had me try this, and the credibility goes up. And all of a sudden, it's like, this woman's brilliant. Help me, and then you're feeling better. And I could see Linda smiling, going, "That's exactly what happened." That each one of those little steps, Linda convinced herself, I'm all in, because Linda's an all in kind of gal. You can see her. She's beautiful. She's successful. She was really well educated, and yet she was failing. When somebody helps support somebody who's motivated to start winning, man, do they come onto the team. So Linda, you did your Theo, you did your zinc test, you did your sleeping better. How did life change for you?
Oh, I just have so much more energy. I feel better every day. I feel like I'm alive. Before I met the DNA company and Lynn and her expertise, I really thought I was dying. I thought I would ask myself, is this how it feels to get older? My body hurt, my head hurt, I had no energy. Is this just what aging is like? Oh my goodness. But all those things are gone. Headaches are gone. Everything that I suffered with for so long has already improved. And I haven't completely detoxed yet from mercury. I'm just have slowed down the toxic burden. I now, through the coaching of Lynn, realize that there were so many things I was adding that I thought was good, but was actually harming me. And so as we remove those things, and I changed behaviors like a bedtime ritual, a cocoon, I think as Kasha talks about, and sleeping better, and just literally my husband and I don't sleep in the same bed anymore because he's big and he snores and he will turn over and wake me up, or he'll cough and wake me up. I'm like, Lynn says my sleep is non-negotiable. So I have
Now that might not encourage a few people. Maybe we need to get your husband on a program and get rid of that snoring.
actually, he was working on that right now because he's like,
Good.
I don't like this. And I'm like, my sleep is non negotiable. I have got to detox. And so, and he has seen the improvement in me. And when you mentioned about how I feel about Lynn, she is definitely my angel. Um,
And her
and when I
name
went
happens
back,
to be Lynn Angel, in case
yeah.
anybody didn't know.
So I go back to my functional medicine doctor because, I still see her regularly. And I'm telling her about all I've done and how I'm doing this new detox protocol. And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. You need to do this. You need to take this prescription. You need that. And I'm like, I got to do it this way. I've already tried that. Nope, I'm not going back. All right, she said, we'll have to agree to disagree. I'm like, that's okay. I'm following the DNA. And what is so interesting is she's now started learning about DNA. And when I told her I was getting ready to do the DNA GI 360 test, she said, I've never heard of that. I said, don't you worry. I'm going to give it to you because you're going to be all over it. Wait till you see what this company does.
Well, now I love what you just said. Your doctor works for you, whether it's your nurse practitioner or your doctor, or they actually work for you. And for you to hold that personal space saying, I followed what you did and it didn't get well. Now I'm trying this. But what you did is you brought her to your side to say, come learn. She's got her expertise. We're all little experts in certain areas, but you brought her over. There's so many people that are afraid to have an uncomfortable conversation or not put their practitioner on a pedestal. And yet they can't know everything. So kudos to you for having the personal sovereignty to say, this is working for me. And because of that, I'm going to stay in that space, because we have, and a lot of people don't know this, we have 30,000 practitioners that are on our database that are learning about DNA or want to incorporate DNA. And people are like, well, how do I find somebody? Tracy, how does somebody find somebody? Because Lynn Angel in South Africa can't handle every single person that we have that wants.
Oh, yes, she can.
Okay, great. You just volunteered her.
So yeah, we do have Lynn is part of our house team, right? So we went, in my opinion, and recruited the best of the best in each of these areas. And Lynn was one that I wanted when I got here, and I finally got her on the clinical in-house team. And when you do a program like Linda, I don't know if we are talking to your husband, maybe we are. But when you do a program, everybody has like that intake evaluation conversation with one of our team members, and they're all functionally trained. And in that process, we look at different areas of specialty that would impact positively that new patient. And then we use a live human system. We are not using AI to match you with a practitioner. So we actually have people that are trained, again, functionally, and work administratively with all of our in-house people to find that right fit. But we do have 30,000 providers all over the world. And those people, many of them have been certified because we are an accredited certification program, right? So when they come in, it's a pass or fail. And if they fail, we will not certify them. And we provide their testing, we provide their education through DNA University, which is, again, accredited in the United States. We're working on Canada right now. And we're able to help them get that foundational education, like what Lynn did, and then grow their practice accordingly. So, but it's very much a manual process, doctor, when we have a new person come in. We make sure that we've got to listen to them. One of the things Linda just said was she went to her terrestrial practitioner, and the practitioner wants to immediately start, scripting her out. And she said no. And that doesn't happen. Somebody puts a white coat on and we just go, okay, well, you know more than I do. And we have to stop doing that. Again, it's practicing medicine because they haven't got it down right. And that's not to say that practitioners are not brilliant. That's not to say that there's not a lot of functional people out there that really do a stellar job, because there are. But a lot of them also are part of our network. They're people that we've trained and people that we've worked with, and that we do the testing for, and we provide them support and continuing education.
So, Linda, what were the two biggest ahas for you working with Lynn?
Well, the first was how many things I was doing wrong. The second was when I did the intake, I had added that I was a little concerned about heavy metals because I knew my mercury level was high, but mostly I was concerned about hormones and thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that I spoke to was so brilliant because Lynn said, we got to take care of the metals first, because if we start with hormones and you still have metal toxicity, it's the wrong path. The first thing we work on is getting your body detox of these heavy metals. And then you'll find that many other things that you're complaining about will start to fall into place. And so having someone know that this is the order in which we need to do things, and then also being adamant about me going in and having dental work. I had read articles about having mercury removed, and I thought, oh, that's just way over the top. These are, But I had tried so many things and I felt so bad that when Lynn said, this is what you need to do before you do any type of detox, I'm like, okay, let's just go get it done. And the first 3 I had removed because they would do one side and the other, move around. I already felt better almost immediately just having that done.
Mm-hmm. And Lynn, what was your big aha with Linda in particular? Either what you saw or how quickly she responded, or was there something about her personality because she just really dug in and listened and educated? What was your big aha being able to work with Linda that set her apart from some of your other clients?
Well, Linda is just an extraordinary person. I mean, she's highly successful. She's highly motivated. So she was a client who I knew would be willing to do the work, because I can't fix her. You can't fix her. There's not a pill, a lotion, or a potion that's going to fix her, or a protocol. She needs to do the work. And here was a person who was now, with the knowledge of her DNA 360 report, she understood her body in a way she has never been able to. And with that in mind, that's your guidebook. We just had to say, look, the order is the most toxic thing right now is the mercury. And if you still have mercury and you detox, you're pulling it from the wrong places. So you're never going to get the end of it. And for the people out there, I'd like to just say to them, don't rush off and go and do a mercury detox, because it's not a quick fix. It takes a long time to get out of your body. You need to do it safely. So it's like fighting mercury is like climbing Everest. You're doing it because you want to have that incredible view when you're there. It'll change your life. getting rid of mercury will change your health, but it'll change your life as well, because you'll get your life back. I think this is the big thing for Linda as well. She was losing her life before she came to the DNA company. Now she has her life back because she's in the process of lowering that burden. So you really want to find someone who can assist you, who has climbed the mountain already. If you want to get a guide to climb Everest, you're not going to pay a guide who's never climbed it before, who's going to do it with you for the first time. And I think that's what happens with a lot of practitioners. With the best will in the world, they will have read about a protocol and say, this is what you need to do. And this is how she ended up on these high doses of ALA to chelate mercury, but harming herself greatly.
And I think so many people now will hear this and they'll go to Dr. Google and they'll, read about how to detox mercury, and then they'll start taking supplements and they don't realize that what they're taking has a half-life. And there is a protocol. You have to bind it and it has to get out of your body. It can't bind and release back in your body because it goes to your weakest organ. Whatever is the weakest part of your body is where it's going to attach again. And so, getting the DNA testing done and then having a professional work with you, whether it's I imagine everybody you work with has heavy metals. I'd be shocked if they didn't, or some sort of toxic burden that they need to be able to detox from. The chemicals that we put in our body. I love my Yucca app, by the way. I mean, I Yucca app everything with that QR code to see what's in the stuff that I'm putting on and in my body. And I've changed everything because I'm educating myself to, if I'm trying to detox the mercury, I don't need to keep adding more chemicals to my system. I've changed all organic foods, um, you know, everything I've changed because I want to reduce that toxic burden so I can work on my main problem, which is mercury. But I couldn't do it without Lynn. She is just, constantly coaching me through, or I'll think I'm doing something right and she'll say, no, 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 no. They're suggesting this. Don't take that. Not with mercury poisoning. You don't want to take that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would have taken it. So having that coaching ongoing is so beneficial.
Well, and I think one of the things that I see a lot with our patient load is, they come in and they're looking for that magic bullet. They're looking for that practitioner to save them. We don't do that here. We don't do that here. Our responsibility is facilitation, education, and then constant support. And a lot of people don't want to do the work you did, Linda. They don't want to spend the time, the money, the perception that it's, so expensive to do all this. Dying's expensive. Being really sick in America, that shit ain't cheap. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not, right? I know, Steph, I just swore. I'm sorry. I apologize. Kate put the disclaimer at the bottom. But, it's not cheap, right? It costs a lot of money to be really sick in this country. And when you go to that practitioner, it's not just your copay. Your insurance just got billed $300 for that visit. They got billed another $1,300 if you got sent to the lab, up to $3,500 if you got hormone testing done. So this is not cheap, none of this. But what I recognized in your email, Linda, and what I really admired and found very inspirational from the jump was you went in ready to put your hands under that hood. You were going to do whatever you had to do to turn things around. And again, look at you. You look fantastic. You feel fantastic. And you can see that off of you. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care how much money you spent to do that. I bet you'd be willing to spend 10 times that to still feel as great as you do right now. 1,000.
So, Lynn, any final thoughts on helping people support in their journey, whether it's heavy metals or discovering their DNA or just discovering what they don't know?
We all have a PhD in ourselves. And I think we need to start listening to our bodies. And I think if I give everybody one sentence, and that sentence is, I feel better when I ... you will already find a lot of things that, because we know, I shouldn't eat this, but I shouldn't eat cheesecake, but you might be lactose intolerant. Your DNA test will tell you that. So when you eat cheesecake and you have to go and sleep afterwards because it knocks you so much, then that's not good for you, because when you eat something, you should feel energized. So if you just complete that little sentence, I feel better when I have 8 hours sleep compared to if I have 6 hours sleep. So you can, for yourself, figure out a lot of things that you can start doing today. It's not one day, it's day one. You choose to change your life. But it was an absolute pleasure to work with Linda and just to see how, she's just living the life right now.
She is radiant. And Linda, I'm going to let you take us out. If you had to say something to someone who's watching this going, I've been on the fence, I've been looking at DNA, I want to do it, I'm not sure, what would you tell someone who is maybe struggling with headaches or struggling with feeling like they're dying inside this living body they have? What would you tell them to do, to get better?
They have got to contact the DNA company and start by learning about what they don't know about their body. Get that DNA test done. I'm actually my daughter's coming to visit for my birthday this weekend, and I'm going to have her do the DNA test, and I'm going to buy her a package for Christmas and get her on the same track that I am, because we don't have to feel bad. I mean, so many people are walking around with low energy, headaches, gastro problems, achy joints. That is not how we were intended to be. And we don't even realize that we're poisoning ourselves. And all we have to do is learn about how we're made and give our body the right foods and take away the bad things, and we will heal. We literally generate a whole new body. Every 7 years we reproduce. So it's not too late. I mean, if you get up in the morning and you can't move, you got arthritis and all these things that just all the autoimmune diseases and everything everybody's suffering from. Learn about yourself, get your DNA done, have someone work with you that can help you to understand what it is you need to take out and what you need to put in. And you'll have a whole new life, a life that's just unbelievably, incredibly amazing. And if you love yourself enough to spend a few $100s and get this work done. I mean, I feel like everything I do for me is self-compassion and self-love. And I am very important and I'm worth it. My husband, I had him order something online the other day that I wanted to eat, and we had to pay $10 for the shipping for like an $8 product. And I said, I'm worth it. It's pure. It has nothing in it. That's what I want. So, love yourself, get that attitude, definitely have your DNA done. It's just an amazing tool. And it made so much sense once I had it done, why I had so many different problems going on.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, Linda, nobody could top that. So I just want to say thank you for your trust in our company. Thank you for your trust in Lynn. Thank you for being willing to share your story, because you're a beautiful example of a woman of get it done, of taking personal responsibility, of owning those boundaries. But most importantly, you are now a DNA highlight reel of what can happen when you learn about your DNA and do the work. So thank you. God bless you. Be well. Lynn Angel, you are an angel. We value you as part of the team. You did a fabulous job. And Tracy, without your leadership and bringing all the support in for your practitioners and the education and all you've done to step up, we wouldn't be growing as fast. I love that you listen to our clients and respond to their needs. And to all of you out there listening, you know what? If there's a little piece of you that's been saying, I really need to get this done, I hope this moves you to the point where you say, I'm worth it. Like Linda said, you're worth it. Love yourself, and we love you all. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you.